Drunks was INTZ's featured player in their matchup against Liquid last Sunday. Albeit the oldest player in the lineup, he hasn't grown out of being the MVP. His experience can clearly make the difference in challenging times like these for the team. But in the last meeting between INTZ and Team oNe, it was someone else in the INTZ roster that stood out.
Passa agora os jogadores, é flash pra tudo quanto é lado, o Drunks já consegue a eliminação, mas o Nesh tenta recuperar pra cima do Zek. Na passagem do gerador veio o Drunks, tá inspirado, Nesh na frente dele, olha o Drunks! Triple eliminação, impressionante o trabalho do Drunks!
Actually, throughout the match, Zach managed to play a remarkable game, stunning the team on a poor map for them. If we're going to draw attention to individual talent, it's impossible not to mention the performances of Lagonis from Team oNe. The team leader, in addition to being the deciding factor in many situations, Team oNe support plays a fundamental role, even though the stats may not show it as clearly. If INTZ wants revenge for the defeat they suffered in the second stage, they have a duty to keep an eye not only on Team oNe's captain, but all of his teammates as well.
Hoje, querendo ou não, são o melhor time do Brasil, mas a gente está muito mais preparado do que a gente estava no split passado. Então acredito que vai ser um jogo muito mais apertado, mais pegado e com certeza a gente vai crescer com a vitória.
A obrigação está mais na mão deles do que na nossa, a gente vai continuar focando no nosso. Então, se eles quiserem surpreender a gente e eles que tragam algo fora da caixa, a gente foca muito mais na gente do que no próprio adversário. Então, acho que a responsabilidade de surpreender está neles.
Drunks had a tremendous performance against Liquid, and Zach holds in recent memory of beautiful plays from their previous matchup. Will Lagonis' leadership be enough to overcome these two heavy hitters? Find out in this match between the reigning Brazilian champions Team oNe and INTZ.
Well, it's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. Obviously, Team oNe, with a lot riding on this, it feels like, Ollie, coming off of that Mexico major win. There is a lot to prove, whereas INTZ, one of those middle-of-the-pack teams, it feels like they're kind of going into it where any point is a positive.
Yeah, and, you know, INTZ are going to be feeling like they can just go in there and play their own game. It's another one of those situations that we've seen Santos in a couple of times where, you know, they don't really feel the pressure to win because there's not much of an expectation to win. You know, they're going up against Team oNe, and we've seen Team oNe play increasingly better over this stage as it's gone on. Sure, they had a bit of a slower start, but they're now starting to ramp things up once again.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Gio, I'm a little bit interested in the map veto here. How about we take a look over at that and see where we're going to be ending up? Because these are two teams that we don't really have a great depth of knowledge into their history, and they haven't really had a wide range of maps they played against each other, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, so INTZ, we saw them play on Villa yesterday, and for Team oNe, they played on Bank. So it was actually the second time that we got to see Bank in the BR6 this stage. INTZ are pretty partial to an Oregon. I'm wondering if Team oNe would take them there, but I don't think Team oNe need to go to... And there we go, they're going to be banning out Oregon, because Team oNe are not a team that need to go to that kind of safe space of Oregon. I think they can really push the boat out and try to take INTZ to somewhere a little bit more challenging. So maybe it will be that we see somewhere a bit, I mean, I was going to say a bit more aggressive, but clearly INTZ are kind of uncomfortable with the idea of going to Coastline against Team oNe. So, I mean, Chalet could be an option. We know that Team oNe really like that map. They're going to be banning out Cafe, so both Chalet and Bank are still in. This is really interesting because it surprises me that INTZ would want to go to Bank, just given that it's new in the map pool. That said, they now have some information on the way that Team oNe like to play that map, and maybe they're looking to use that to their advantage.
Yeah, obviously they can go back and review the VOD from yesterday that Team oNe had. But Ollie, the question is it going to be enough time to prepare one day to study an entire map of a team like Team oNe? It's going to be a tricky one for them.
Yeah, I think Team oNe have probably won the banning phase there. You know, if you just think about the options that INTZ were left with, you can either go to Chalet, which is a map that Team One know exceptionally well. And some have even said that Team One created the meta for Brazil on that map. Or you go to Bank. So it's a rock and a hard place really for INTZ. You got a feel for them there. I think they've certainly been a little bit outplayed inside of the ban. But then again, where do you take a team like Team 1-2? When they've got so much depth to them now at the moment.
All right, Gio, this is my thought process. INTZ don't have any recent VODs to review on this map, really, so we may have something from them a little bit off guard. They may be able to pull something out their back pocket. What do you think? Are INTZ coming into this prepared, or was it, like Ollie said, a case where, well, it's a rock and a hard place between Chalet and Bank?
Well, I mean, I think if you look back at the video that we just saw of Team One even talking about this game, they said the onus is on INTZ to bring out a surprise. We know how we want to play. We're going to stick to how we want to play. We're not going to worry about what they want to do. If they want to surprise us, they absolutely can. And so I expect that is what Team One will do. I don't think they're going to deviate too far from the way that they were playing yesterday. They are just going to allow INTZ to try and figure that out, try and beat them. Team One will adapt in the moment. We saw them do it against MIBR yesterday. And if INTZ want to do something crazy, they are more than welcome to.
Absolutely, they are. On the topic of INTZ, Ollie, I think it's important we touch on here. We said that they are middle of the pack, but obviously after yesterday's performance, they are within touching distance of tying things up with Black Dragons. Do you think that, this is an important match for them? Because once you tie with that 7th place team, then you are on the cusp of qualifying for the Copa Elite 6 come the end of the stage.
Yeah, I think INTZ did a lot of the hard work yesterday in beating Santos, because that's then given them the one-up in that sort of head-to-head that could happen. But unfortunately, they did lose to Black Dragons back in week number 2. So it's going to be difficult, going to be more difficult, should I say, to actually leapfrog Black Dragons here. And they're going to have to get a result out of a different game. And this could be that game that they look to. Obviously, Bank, there's opportunity there for INTZ. It's a reworked map coming into the pool for the first time. It's only going to be the 3rd time tonight that we see it. Oh, sorry, the 3rd time this stage that we see it here in stage 3. So it's still very much unknown. And if INTZ have been doing the homework and they've really, knuckled down and figured out how they want to play it, then they could come against some good success tonight. Team One didn't look fantastic yesterday on Bank. I think that's something that, for all that they were able to get the win, personally, I just don't think that they looked great. Their attacks were a little bit strange. There was a lot of focus on just pushing through that main lobby and up onto that top floor. And there were some approaches that were just so heavily reliant on one player popping off, that one player being Alamau. If he was able to get in on the nook and get a couple of kills, then that was great. But aside from that, Team One didn't have that much depth. And I think, obviously, part of that being the fact that they were experiencing some technical difficulties themselves. Obviously, part of that being that they're coming up against MIBR, a team that we know to be on form at the moment as well. But it doesn't, we can't count INTZ out here. They've still got some good opportunity.
No, you know what? On the topic of Team One, how about we take a quick refresher of the roster while they get everything set up? And Gio, maybe you could talk us through which players to look out for on Team One, because they are a very formidable team and they have 1 or 2 players that just consistently frag out and pop off, as they did yesterday on Bank.
Yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much anybody on Team One has the power to provide a ton of value. Someone that we spoke about quite a bit yesterday was Lagonis, because we were talking about him in the context of getting tons of plants down. He had the highest stats for the number of plants, how objective focused they can play. One thing I will say is that Team One weren't playing as objective focused as MIBR were yesterday. I don't think MIBR were very quick to get plants down really early in the rounds. Team One not quite so much, and I did wonder whether or not that was partly because of just getting used to the map again. If they would lose a player early, sometimes their strategy would sort of fall apart somewhat. So I think it's still important to be watching out for Lagonis and see the way he plays. Alamau, he's the guy who gets spoken about so much on this team, but he had so much value to give yesterday. There were a couple of rounds where, even though maybe things were looking to be floundering a little bit for the team, a certain kill or a certain 2 kills, really impactful kills that he was able to acquire for the team, would turn the momentum of the round. So once again, I think he's also going to be up there on that list of people to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. Ollie, we have ran through the roster of Team One. How about we take a quick look over at that INTZ roster? You can fill us in on, similarly to what Gio did, any players to look out for? Or is it with INTZ that they're just one of those teams where everyone seems to pull their weight and frag out evenly.
I think if you look in terms of the stats, there is a little bit of a disparity there between the performances that are being put in. INTZ are a team that have sort of struggled to field a consistent 5. We've noted that they've had to play with Miranda as a substitute a couple of weeks ago, which obviously not ideal, but it was a situation that had to happen. When they're on the day, they're a fantastic team of gunners and they can really put in a good performance. Someone that's having a great stage so far is Hornetau, currently sitting at +6 in terms of KD. And he's one of the only people that is actually going to be positive. Zach, after his performance yesterday, has managed to claw his way back to a +1, but they are the only 2 positively rated players on the side. You look down at Vits, VNX and Drunks, those guys are really struggling. And I think it just speaks more to the inconsistency that we see from this INTZ roster, because you can think about games and plays where every single person has done exceptionally well. I mean, we've seen the highlights here. Don't forget, INTZ, they were able to beat Liquid on Clubhouse. It was a maximum overtime win, but they got the job done in the end. On the whole, I think we just need to see a little bit more consistency out of these guys, and you know, that sort of pop-off performance isn't going to keep carrying them through time after time.
I mean, look, Gio, on the topic of, you know, INTZ and seeing what they did yesterday, we should talk about that game, because beating Liquid is no easy feat. Sure, they did it in OT, but they managed to do it really well, and I think it shows that they're definitely a squad to look out for. The same, though, could be said here for Team 1 after they had that rough fight against MIBR.
Yeah, I don't know if I would label MIBR as a squad to look out for. I think they've more than proven themselves on an international stage this year, so we already know to watch for them, and MIBR are a very worthy opponent. But INTZ, I think, is a perfectly good point. INTZ started this entire year, this entire season, in a pretty rough spot. It was only when they got that really wild win against FaZe Clan on Clubhouse back in stage 1 that we started to maybe see a turning of the tables and some of the incoherences of this team come together, adhere a little bit, and since then they have certainly been improving. It's been an upwards trajectory, albeit a steady one, and I don't think it's high enough for them to have any substantial differences or outcomes at the end of this year, but I think it sets them up well for what could be going into season... What season is it next? Season 3, I guess, next year. Wow, it's been a long time. So, yes, they have been having these improvements. Their performance against Team Liquid, certainly a good thing, but INTZ have had these performances every now and then where they'll just completely clobber a top team and then they'll struggle the following week. So I think they're still looking for that same level of consistency, but I have been way happier with the way that they've played as time has gone on compared to all the way at the beginning of stage 1.
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think that a lot of teams in the BR6 are showing that with the fact that it's cumulative standings and everything is causing problems. No more problems now, though, as game is getting underway. Team 1 versus INTZ. It's going to be an exciting one over here on Bank. Ollie, Gio, take it away.
Thank you very much, Chunks. We are ready to get stuck into our first game of the night. See what Team 1 and INTZ have in store. Exactly the same place that we started off the day yesterday, starting on Bank with Team 1. INTZ hitting us with the old Hibana ban.
You love to see it, because this came up so much in the game that we saw between Team 1 and MIBR yesterday. They didn't have a Hibana ban, and then this really affected whether or not anyone wanted to play on the damn basement. So that should, for the defenders, make it way more viable to defend the basement on this map.
It should, and the basement was something that we saw, used once yesterday, maybe twice, I want to say.
Yeah, it was only a couple of times. It was only a couple of times.
Cade banned as well, so...
Oh my god.
It's just every single ban here indicates one thing, and that is hatches.
Yeah.
You know, you just do not want these hatches being a problem at all. Hibana, removed. Cade, removed. you're still going to be able to get the hatches open. Maverick's just going to be a pretty busy chap inside of this one if he's chosen to be played. I can't think that...
I think we saw any yesterday.
Well, I was going to say, I can't think that Team One are particularly known for a Maverick play. And there you go. You can see them all already locking in the Ace and the Thermite. I think maybe one of the bigger problems with Maverick is just how much time it takes to open the hatch. You know, and the time that you spend on a map like Clubhouse, say, opening up Bar Hatch, it's not the end of the world. Or Oregon opening up Meeting Hatch, you've got one to do. But when there's a couple of hatches to go for, you've really just not got that time to be moving on through, especially with how big Bank is and how sort of tied up you can get in that early part of the round.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. One thing I have to let you down though, Ollie, we're going to a CEO defense and it doesn't look like I highly doubt we're going to see that traditional approach from what we saw back in the day that you so desperately wanted to see yesterday. That said, seeing an Ace in the mix here, it almost feels refreshing because it's been a while ever since Ace had his smokes taken away from him. We've seen a lot more Thermite play, a lot less Ace play, but given the fact that we don't have a Hibana in this game, Ace is the only option you have for that long-range hard breach. So Bank is one of those maps where you really require that if you're going to be trying to breach onto Kanto, for example, which is that wall by the elevator. Yesterday, it was just a Hibana who'd be used to do that. You would rappel on the window outside and you'd be able to breach that from outside. Or even if you were to come in from that more traditional side and come in from the east, you could, in theory, do it from there as well. But I don't suspect that is how the Ace is going to be used in this case.
It's a good point that you bring up about that Kanto spot, because that's now going to be fairly impossible to open. Unless an Ace gets in and actually, like, throws the Selma charge up, but it's just not realistic. So it's going to be difficult to remove the players that are going to be playing at the top of main, outside of the elevator. It's not going to be an easy feat there, and it's usually a pretty free picking that you can get, and you can just have someone sitting watching that flank. It's going to cause Team One to be a lot more active in terms of getting in. We've got Lagonis on the rappel at the moment. KDS, he's going to assist as Levy actually just hops himself straight in. How is a plant going to go down
going
here?
For it.
There's 10 players alive. Levy's getting the plant down. The floor below him is open, for goodness sake. And the plant goes down under cover. Levy can die now, and it really isn't the end of the world. This can be held quite easily from the windows, but INTZ have just had to totally give over control of the site, and they're now looking to try and fight back for it. Drunks, Toxic Babe canister onto the window. The upside down rappel, not going to be easy to challenge onto. As 2 kills start to fly on in here for Team One, holding this very well indeed. VNX, and he's known at the moment. He's going to be on the spiral stairs, rotating round Banana, but he's still got a 1 versus 3 to deal with. KDS picks up yet another kill inside of the round. Team One seeing an opportunity and taking it.
Yeah, that was actually shocking. So all that talk that I had about the long-range hard breach going to be used onto Kanto, you don't have the Hibana, this is how it's going to change, doesn't matter. Just rappel on the window outside, hop into the site, and no one's going to move in on you. There was no roam downstairs from the defenders. INTZ didn't have anyone to punish from below. It's a soft floor. As you said, Ollie, the floor was open. They would have had a direct line of sight onto the default plant spot. Nobody was there. They knew that this plant was happening. No one moved in. And it's something that we did see yesterday, but to a less egregious extent. And that is that when certain teams managed to actually get in and begin planting in CEO, because the defenders were still trying so hard to defend those avenues of ingress elsewhere onto that top floor, no one actually moves really proactively. They wait until the plant is down and play for a post plant.
Say that 5 times quickly.
I got there eventually. And that's hugely risky because, as you said, at that point, it didn't matter if Levy died. And they couldn't get them off the windows. They used the Toxic Babe canister to try and be a deterrent, but there was no jump outs. There was nothing to actually stop those angles from being held by the attackers.
VNX was the closest player that could really do anything about it, and even he still had somebody to contend with who was coming in through main door. If he'd have been able to get into that main door area, he would have had an angle onto the players on rappel, but every angle was being held there by Team 1. And that's not the first time that we've seen them execute a very bold and confident play, where they just see an opportunity and they take it. It was happening yesterday against MIBR on this map. It happens on other maps, but it's just nice to see that level of confidence once again from Team 1, knowing that they can just say, site's empty? Yep, no worries, I'm in. And they've got that ability to back one another up. So we are going to see a site change. No surprise. INTZ are going to take us all the way downstairs to the basement, which, I'll be honest, I would imagine would have been a better place to start. Obviously, we now know how the first round went, so it's very easy to sit here and say that. But they do have a couple more things going in their favour, particularly in terms of the operator bans for defending this site.
Yeah, also, look, it's really interesting, too, how Zach has decided he's going to bring along an Oryx. So they clearly want to use these hatches to their advantage and try and get a late roam, I think, onto Team 1. Nice black eye camera as well. It's going to feed them a lot of information about how Team 1 are looking to approach. They're doing this main stairs push for now. Now, given the fact that they're running a Nook, the question is Alamau going to be caught out? Well, maybe not. One of the things that Chubb said to us yesterday was the fact that they ran Alamau on the Nook so much and in the positions that they did because they knew that MIBR weren't using barbed wire in certain places and simply relying on cameras. It's a similar thing here, you know? They don't even have an Echo. They're just relying on the Valkyrie for that information. But Alamau could find it easy to get in once again, just as he did yesterday.
Yeah, the hatches are starting to get opened now. Zach's actually going to be playing the Oryx, playing downstairs, so he does have the option to make that rotation, and there's a nice Valkyrie camera here. Alamau is entirely unaware of that. Straight toward main stairs. That's a great call out. If Zach is able to get up one of these hatches, no. Oh, he's going to go for it, but he actually messes it up. He actually runs into the wall and thinks better of it, and he dips himself out. Unless that was just an elaborate bait, Zach. I apologize if it was. If you were just trying to give the sound cue and maybe bait someone into the engagement, but it looks like he's had an absolute mare. KDS has dropped into elevator and he's been able to take him out as first blood. There's only 35 seconds left here. So really, there is still an opportunity for INTZ to hold these players back, especially with KDS now being cut off inside of that elevator. Toxic Babe canister holding him in place. Vitz, he's able to get the kill over onto Levy. The diffuser's still in the hands of Lagonis. Ornatau trying to stay alive with the shotgun at close range. Eventually does manage to make it land. The Toxic Babe canister finishing Lagonis off there. The diffuser cold on the ground, but the pre-fire through the soft wall from KDS is going to be enough to shut Ornatau down. Collects the diffuser and starts planting on the 2-second mark. 2 versus 2 with Alamau covering. Now the onus really is on INTZ to make that rotation and to try and make something happen. Ran out of ammo in the primary. The Deagle has been drawn. VNX has already taken down KDS. And Alamau has activated his cloak. He needs to try and keep himself alive here. There's 30 seconds left. I'm not sure how much information INTZ have got here. Drunks is super low. VNX needs to challenge this with him as a double. They need to try and get the trade off here. Alamau finds the final 2. How does he get away with that, Gio?
I was honestly about to say, Alamau, you are screwed. But Alamau wasn't screwed. Okay, I'm sorry. So there's a couple of things I want to point out here because Alamau not only got caught on camera as Nook, then Team 1 lost the diffuser. They had 2 seconds left to plant. They made the plant successfully. They had Alamau with a Deagle to cover and then try and hide behind a half wall. And 2 players of INTZ push up on him at the same time, and he still wins that engagement. Who is this player? What is this team? None of that should have been conducive to a victory to Team 1 in that round.
No, absolutely nothing went for him. Nothing went well for them inside of that round at all, aside from Alamau's clutch at the end.
That was ridiculous. And you know what? It was all because Zach couldn't get up the hatch. No, I'm just joking. But I think Zach going down quite quickly probably did have a bit of a knock-on effect. This is one of the criticisms that I have about choosing an Oryx is he's a very high-risk operator. And oftentimes, you will find a very valuable player be put on him. So a player who you want to frag, a player who you're expecting to be able to get the kills off the back of using Oryx's ability. So if that player doesn't get the value out of Oryx, if that player goes down, you've lost a pretty big person on your team, and suddenly something you were kind of relying on for your strategy isn't there anymore. So we will never know if Zach would have got the necessary kills to be able to turn that round around. But not having him, I think, did cause a bit of a pain for INTZ.
I was kind of relieved when he didn't get up the hatch because I thought he's going to get up that hatch, he's going to die straight away. It's a big sound cue. Someone's going to be in the area. We could see the silhouettes knocking around. You know, maybe he gets one and it's a different round. But then INTZ wouldn't have known about KDS dropping elevator and they wouldn't have been able to smoke him out for the amount of time that they did. So the knock-on effect would have run a little bit deeper. Yeah. It's just, Oryx isn't a great operator, in my opinion. And I'm yet to see something that's really going to convince me otherwise. I'm not saying
I don't think I have ever seen in pro play a really good Oryx round.
No, it's just so seldom.
Usually a detriment. Oh, well, no.
Alamal's still got his confidence. 5-0 currently. Picking up the first kill in this round. Taking down Drunks. Drunks sent back to the cameras. KDS as well. KDS has been popping off. He's sitting 5-1 himself. Shuts Zach down. Zach had a great game yesterday and he's really struggling to find his feet here. Got floor control all but gained, and it will now be fully gained as KDS takes down Vitz. Team 1 just one step ahead at every turn right now.
Saw him. Oh, VNX, you gotta hit. Oh my goodness. Alamat, what's he on now? 7-0?
There's, yeah, perfect round, flawless round. Blink and you miss it stuff from Team 1. The site there was open area, by the way. So yeah, INTZ are really trying to go around. Yeah, we didn't even get onto that part.
I actually, at the end of that round, it was a problem that I called INTZ for out yesterday, and it seems to have continued forward into this game, and that is the idea that when the going gets tough on their defense, they will actually move forward, and they will peak, and they will get aggressive. You know, VNX doing that at the end, don't. It's not going to help you. The attackers have to get to the site eventually, defend the site. You know, whether you're defending the site on site or off site, it doesn't really matter. But the point is, don't walk and try and find the attackers. That is just how you send yourself into a death trap. And INTZ have made that mistake a couple of times. Now, one thing I will say is I don't think that round was salvageable. So it's not the end of the world that they did it in that round. It's more just a bad habit that absolutely can and has taken potentially salvageable rounds off of INTZ in the past.
Yeah. I think the only round so far that INTZ have looked close to winning was round number 2. So, realistically, we should be sat here at a 2-1 scoreline to Team 1. The fact of the matter is that INTZ are now getting into almost that frustrated, as you say, like, over-aggressive peaking when things aren't going their way. And if that carries on into winnable rounds, then there could be a little bit of a problem. They're going back downstairs now, which, for all intents and purposes, was a 2 versus 1. Sure, the diffuser was down, but it was a 2 versus 1 in favor of INTZ. So surely they can replicate that a little bit. But no, Levy strikes. Team 1 have been brutal and ruthless on this opening kill.
It's not even that they've been super brutal. I think they just see opportunities that require very little effort from them. Maybe that's a brutal way of putting from it, but it does certainly seem that way. Now, Alamal's just seen the exact black eye camera that saw him earlier, and it's nice here that Zach has been able to get a kill back over onto Levy. Now, this is interesting too because that is one of their hard breaches. Again, this is a basement push, and they didn't really need to worry so much about their hatches last time, but I would say that is a pretty valuable operator to bring down early in the round.
Especially with the way that Levy's been positioning himself so far. He hasn't got a great amount of kills, but he's certainly been in useful spots. Especially in the clutch in the previous time we saw this site. So, a 1-for-1 trade. Jaeger for an ace. Honestly, you probably take that. Not as many hatches are going to be able to be opened, and we can hear the hatch now getting opened into A. Drunk's just going to think twice about... Oh, no, maybe he's not going to think twice at all. Maybe he's going to go for it. Getting himself into a really aggressive position here. Not sure what exactly Drunks is doing, but this is just so risky. He's just running directly underneath the hatch for no reason.
He's just getting some exercise. He just wants to get the reps in.
He needs to get his steps in.
For his untimely demise. Yeah. Again, it's just not what I am a huge fan of. I guess we'll see. I mean, Team 1 are going to start making their move in... What? no! How are you going to make a push now without the Finker? Everyone's been using Finker the last couple days. KDS, that was not the best. And that nade was likely to try and clear out some utility below as well, which is going to be exceptionally frustrating, because if that's something like a mute jammer, for example, that's utility that needs to be gone.
Absolutely not ideal at all. Lagonis drops into sight, takes a huge chunk of damage. The Toxic Babe is going to finish him off if Zach doesn't get there first. Diffuser cold now in no man's land, and swings now starting to come through and be successful. Alamau drops and finds Hornetau instantly. Can he grab the second? No, eventually will be shut down. Zach coming in and clutching things out there. Alamau still looking deadly right up until the death, but finally we see a round go INTZ's way.
Finally, we get proof that Alamau is actually killable. He's mortal. Who would have known? Crazy. But no, I think that they did get that very valuable first kill, as in first kill for their team. To be able to bring down Levy early was great. The fact that KDS killed himself, sure, that wasn't INTZ's doing, but they can certainly capitalize on that fact. Team 1 had to try and change their approach. You saw them making that rotate straight afterwards, and suddenly you don't have as much control of what's going on below you if you haven't been able to clear out utility that's down there. Or even if they had been looking to clear out a player as opposed to utility, even so, that's one more player who is there. So I would expect it was either for something like a mute jammer, or it would have been for the bulletproof camera, for example. Something that was down there that they needed gone in order to facilitate their push. That could not be an option anymore. So INTZ built off of that. And that's a great thing. And now they're going to be returning back to what was their primary site, which Team 1 had a very easy time getting into. And I suspect that INTZ will make some changes in the way that they position. I mean, I would like to at least know that there's a yokai drone in CEO, because if Team 1 were to make a similar attempt to what they did back in round number 1, INTZ at least need to know about it and have some direct denial, because that's the other thing. They didn't have anyone positioned downstairs. I want to be seeing that. But they also didn't use any plant denial onto the plant. While you're running a smoke and an echo now, you have no excuse.
Yeah, the information needs to improve a little bit on the side of INTZ. And it's not to say that they're not bringing it. I think the Valkyrie's been very successful for them, but this top floor really didn't go their way at all. And with the way that Team 1 are setting up, it looks as though they're going to go for fairly similar approach again. Levy droning out, recognizing that, yep, a lot of this is going to be clear. No yokais on the ceiling. Oh, yep, there is one there. Mark that for later. Hopefully he did spot it, but just through a droning of the site and just getting a full picture and trying to understand where these INTZ players are going to be located is going to give them that advantage when they need to. The yokai drone was pinged out there. It's not going to be the easiest thing to get rid of. Potentially a nade could be used. It's good to get this perspective on things, because we start to see just how thoroughly Team 1 set up for these executes.
Levy's already going in for the plant once again, though. The exact same position as well. KDS gets a kill onto Vitz, but it's just going to significantly weaken INTZ. They're all going down. Ollie, what? Oh, okay, now things are turning around.
Finally, a couple of kills going in INTZ's favour. Still a planted diffuser to deal with, but this time a 2 versus 2. So much more doable. Still, the player on the upside down repelled is not going to be easy to challenge on. Team 1 fairly split up at the moment. They're going to be on either sides of the repel, just basically covering for this run out, and they know all they need to do is start peeking in and around that 7-second mark when the diffuser has no more time to be done. Alamau going to find one onto Hornetau. A desperate fly out of the window from VNX. Even if he'd have got 2 kills there, it would not have mattered. He wouldn't have got back inside in time. Team 1 successful again on that top floor.
So, I have a question. They adapted with the problem of not having anyone down below by putting Hornetau down below. But Hornetau was playing Jaeger. Why do you put the one guy who doesn't have a C4 below the site?
It's strange, isn't it? No C4. Like, in that situation, all you need to do is deny the plant. Like, if you can deny the plant and have the diffuser cold on the ground, that's the round one. You don't need to kill the guys on rappel. You just need to and you can do that safely from below. Play a pulse. Someone bring pulse, please.
I mean, yeah. That would be a good idea. Play polls from archives, just having chilling out in there. It's not even like anyone from Team 1 was going on a roam clear. They don't feel the need to invest their resources there.
Well, they can't. They've not got enough bodies because they need 2 people at least on Repel. They need 1 person to plant. They need somebody at main entrance watching the main lobby area. Otherwise, the people on Repel are vulnerable. So there's not enough people to actually... You can't send 1 person to go roam clear. It doesn't work. So you've really just got to start to play into that. It's a great strat from Team 1.
Bring a pulse.
It's a great strat from Team 1, but it's not the hardest thing in the world to start to crack. You know, you could literally just play a Tachanka below, delete every single shred of that floorboard, and then be like, right, now what are you going to do? and just see how that plays. Like, I don't know.
That's not the strategy I would recommend, but, you know, it's along the right lines. But, yeah, the pulse would have been a better idea. But even just, I mean, they had a mute, man. Like, mute's got a C4. Yeah. And if you've got a yokai sitting upstairs, you've got some information as to what's actually happening in there. You know they were planting on default because that's where they planted before. You should know where default is if you're down below. These players have good enough map knowledge to know the exact pixel to throw the C4 onto. You know what I mean? Like... Come on. Now, for round number 6, we actually got to see that we're in open area this time. We got to look at the site. There has been enough time that has elapsed that we are aware of that knowledge. Whereas back in round number 3, it happened so quickly that it was just you could have blinked and you would never have known. Alamal 6-picked over onto the Nook once again. I was going to say I was wondering if they were anticipating a basement, but actually INTZ can't go to basement because they won their last basement defense. So they were going to be the site then in that case. Nice opening kill once again onto Levy. I don't think it's going to be as impactful as it was on round number 4. But seeing INTZ get an opening kill straight up, I'm happy with.
As you say, it removes the ace and it removes that ability to open things up from afar. You've now got to get somewhat close with the thermite to actually get the job done and place the exothermic. Now, there's not a lot that you're really going to want to try and get open here. It's more than likely going to be all focused through the 2 double doorways into sight, but still something that would have been nice to have. VNX falling is not ideal playing on Echo. That means that the yokai drones aren't going to be as impactful here. Lagonis gets himself chunked down as well. Zach could drop himself back to safety, but will likely try and play his position for a little bit longer inside a janitor and just further waste some time. Now we hear the exothermic charge being used to open up into cafeteria.
4 versus 4, less than a minute remaining. I want to see how Hornetal fares here, because he was picking up a lot of the slack in their game yesterday against Santos. Zach still not committing to going downstairs, instead trying to hold on to the angle from above. But Lagonis is going to take this as his cue to get planting. Hornetal doesn't quite want to commit. He doesn't exactly know where that plant has gone down, and he's missed his opportunity at this point.
Neskin going to shut Drunks down as well. Hornetal being downed in process. Still with a C4 in pocket, I believe. Zach, how much of an impact can he have on the flank? Well, he's going to find one, but eventually will be shut down as well. 2 versus 2, effectively 2 versus 1. Neskin and Lagonis are the 2 alive for Team 1. Vitz has a bit of information, at least knows where the plant has gone down, but Lagonis moves on through and very quickly shuts him down as well. Team 1 not afraid to get a plant down here, even with everybody still alive.
So a 5-1-1/2 on the attack. I would say that's pretty good. Not a bad place to be if you're Team 1. I'm very curious to see how INTZ are going to approach their attack, because it just felt like when they were on the defense, there were certain gaps that were overlooked that INTZ didn't necessarily consider. Now, ostensibly, attack should, in theory, be harder just because you have to coordinate better. And one of the big things that we discussed yesterday was the sheer size of this map means that it can be hard to allocate resources to every single place that you want to be, especially if someone dies. It's really hard to reshuffle. I have a feeling that just given the way that we've seen these 2 teams play on that first half, if if INTZ find themselves in a situation like that, Team One are going to be suffocating. They are not going to give them any in, and they will absolutely punish any losses that INTZ have, any changes in their approach and strategy that they need to take. Team One will be there to meet them with it. So I guess we'll see. One thing I will say though, INTZ, they've decided to bring this triple hard breach, so there is that potential that if they were to lose one of their hard breaches, as happened to Team One a couple of times, maybe they wouldn't have such a difficult time, but you of course still have to consider the fact that both Thermite and Maverick are short-range hard breaches, and only Ace is there for the long range, and once he's gone, he's gone.
See where INTZ want to try and approach this from, which direction. Yesterday we saw Team One really favouring that main lobby approach. Today, not so much. Today they really favoured the hopping from rappel, and it worked out for them. I don't think there's that much opportunity to get in through the CEO side, as one of the walls at least isn't fully reinforced, and it gives a bit of a line of sight straight onto the doorway that's going to be beneath VNX here, so maybe isn't going to be so viable. It would require quite a bit of cover, but still yet to see where INTZ are setting up. With Hornetower going in underneath, it could suggest that they are looking to pressure out onto this roam game, recognizing there could be players underneath, which is a bit of a wild thought, but Hornetower brilliantly shuts KDS down. KDS getting a bit bold on the challenge there.
Yeah, I can't say I'm a huge fan of that. Again, a little bit unnecessary. KDS just overconfident, perhaps. But it continues on, and INTZ, I suppose, still yet to actually get up to the site, which is up on the top floor. Alamau also here on this roam. That could be very dangerous, particularly as, hey, guess what, Ollie? He's got a C4 and playing down below. Zach, oh, that's unfortunate. Didn't get the opportunity to be res. Doesn't have the withstand anymore, so he can't do it himself. Isn't it a shame when Zafir just has to accept death?
It's unfair. We should bring a mechanic in specifically for Zafir.
Just for Zafir, though.
Just for Zafir.
Because she's a strong mother.
Exactly. It's interesting here, looking at how many players Team One have got below with a C4. You know, we had KDS below. He gave his life away pretty early. We've still got Alamar below. So Team One recognize the flaws, essentially, in their own strategy in terms of, yeah, we'll just hop in and get the plant down. The main vulnerability is going to be from below. It is going to be on that vertical. And they've gone, yeah, we're probably not going to fall victim to that because we're going to have a couple of guys in below who are going to be able to provide us some C4 threat and at least not give away things so easily. Hornetower still downstairs on the hunt. He's yet to come to blows here with Alamau. Alamau now just moving through, getting himself into archives. We do still have him posing a threat, and he will pick his perfect time to strike. Levy and Alamau pick up one apiece, and Vitz, the desperate drop in through the skylight, will be left to try and pick up the pieces here. He's got 3 kills to find in 18 seconds. Is not going to be easy at all. Is he going to be able to shut down Alamau? Alamau does hit the drop and the juke, predicting perfectly just exactly where he's going to need to be. Thinks about the C4, but realizes now not required. Match point here for Team One.
Listen, man, this was a problem when they played against MIBR yesterday, and that is if you don't shut down Alamau when he's on a roam, that roam will come to bite you very freaking hard later on in the round. You cannot leave Alamau unchecked. You can't choose to ignore him. You will die. And I can totally understand why teams would choose to ignore him because it is so resource intensive to try and hunt him out. You end up wasting tons of time, probably using utility that you actually need to get onto the site. You have to have your attention paid elsewhere to the objective. It is really difficult, and I think that's one of Team One's real strengths on this map in particular, is that you kind of have to ignore Alamau, but Alamau knows that if he is ignored, he just has free reign. He is the king of this map. It is a disgustingly difficult thing to try and deal with. So, it makes me really curious, like, if we were to get to see Team One play a team like FaZe or Team Liquid on this map specifically, is that something they'd be able to get away with? Or if Team One played against like Stage 2 NIP on this map, because NIP, they got their roam clears so perfect. And I wonder how those teams would be able to deal with that, compared to a team like INTZ. I mean, even MIBR, they are a top-tier team. Oh dear. They are a top-tier team, and they found it difficult.
Well, looks as though we're going to hit short rehost here. Something not quite right on one of the sides. I enjoy how it was Levy that said remake in the chat there after the entirety of INTZ have actually left. Like Levy's like, no, we really want to get this last round. We really want to win. You know, we don't want this to go any other way. But I'm sure that we're going to get everyone back in the lobby fairly quickly. It's been good to see Team 1 play on Bank again today. And I think it's been a kind of night and day difference versus the way that they played yesterday. Certainly in their approaches. Their approaches have been a little bit different, particularly on that top floor. It's something that I commented about. They've not gone for that main lobby side clear. In part, could be down to the fact that there's no Hibana available. You're not able to gain an angle onto the top of main stairs and the top of elevator, so you've not got as much surety or cover as to what's actually going on there when you get to the top of those spiral stairs. Instead, they've been going for very bold strategies, but they've been working out. They're obviously very confident at the moment, and Alamau is shooting confidence in everything that he does. I mean, that clutch was just insane. We've seen him do some nasty stuff with the Deagle before, but honestly, everything about that clutch was just a little bit insane. Obviously, that's a long time ago now in the context of the game. Team 1 now on the defense, but still really, really menacing. And it's struggling to get anywhere near, I imagine.
Well, yeah, I mean, as we know, is on match point. The other thing as well is that with this rehost, unlike what happened yesterday, they'd already locked into the game, so they have to go back to that site. Whereas yesterday, they did have the option to change which site they went to because they hadn't locked into the round by that point. So already, everyone knows where things are going to be played. They know which operators are being played. There is that level of knowledge. That said, if I'm totally honest with you, I'm not sure that that's actually going to change the way that Team 1 play that much. This entire game so far, and what they said in the video that we got to see before the game, is that they're just going to play their thing. And so far, I think this is going to sound maybe a bit cruel, but I think that Team 1 could telegraph their entire strategy to INTZ, and INTZ would still struggle to deal with it, because Team 1 haven't made any effort to hide it, particularly from INTZ so far. And when we think back to, INTZ's, inability to successfully defend onto CEO, even though it was really clear what those open problems were, that makes me question whether or not INTZ are actually going to be able to use that knowledge that they've gained from the start of this round that's just being remade to bring it back in their favor. And I'll be pleasantly surprised to see if they can.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised as well. I think I really agree with what you say there in terms of there's nothing that Team 1 could do here to give an advantage over to INTZ in terms of telling them what they're going to do. It doesn't matter. INTZ have got a pretty good idea, I think, of what's going to happen. It's not rocket science. It's not going to be very difficult to work out exactly what's going wrong here. You think about the last round, for example, there was a very clear disconnect in their want of a roam clear and their want of that information gathering for the players that were playing below with the C4, and then players still pushing in onto site. We think about how Zach died. He died at the top of square stairs. That was a bit unnecessary. You could have been involved in that roam clear and really started to work together with Vits on the book and stuff like that. So again, just a little bit of a disconnect, I think, and it comes back down to that consistency as well that we do often talk about. But I do believe that we've got everybody back into the game, so thank you for bearing with us. We're going to be doing a couple of checks and then performing a little bit of a throw over to there. So we are back in now. We return where we left. 6 rounds to Team 1. It's going to be an uphill battle for INTZ. Have they got it in the tank here?
Yeah, this is going to be a... Yeah, as I say, I'll be pleasantly surprised to see INTZ actually be able to pull this back in their favor. But we'll see. I mean, once again, they're going for that triple hard breach. It's like, it just reminds me on like certain teams when attacking onto Clubhouse, they'll bring the triple hard breach as that extra insurance. You know,
Yeah.
we just want to be sure that we can actually get in. And as we discussed earlier, this is probably the site that relies on hard breach the most. You can get away without, I won't say without having hard breach. I don't think there's any site on this map where you can get away without having hard breach entirely, but it's the one that's the most forgiving. So I don't know how necessary triple hard breach is. However, you have to consider, of course, that if you're bringing the Maverick, you're going to get the nades as well. They clearly don't want to be running the Finker because they want to have the Buck and the Zafir in there, and they don't want to give up one of those options. And it's funny thinking like, oh yeah, well, you know, I could list off other operators like Yana or like Sledge who bring nades, but right now it's like, no, if you want nades, if you want nades, you're gonna bring Finker. It feels like I'm living in a simulation.
Maybe that's the difference. Maybe it's Finker diff. And if
Yeah,
Ints were
Finker diff.
actually playing Finker, we could be seeing something a little bit more competitive. But I don't. It's going to be a question that I want to ask to a couple of the teams as well. Is just, you know, the popularity of Finker at the moment. You know, talk us through it, because there are some teams that have just entirely switched up their lineups and will run Finker every single round. And then others like INTZ who, you know, for this game at least, they've not even gone anywhere near. So to see if it's maybe just more of a personal preference thing. But in the meantime, it's going to be a top floor clear. Zach getting himself in and looking to try and remove that Banshee. Get rid of the default and continue on. Take control of that top floor. Now, a full map clear for this site. You're going to be very pinched for time come the end. We've already spent a fair bit here in terms of just getting into that top floor.
Well, ooh, I was about to say, let's see where Levy's sneaking off to, but Alamal straight in with the C4. He was doing pretty well for C4s as well yesterday, so, you know, he's doing his job pretty well. And again, that is that ace. And it's just, I feel like teams are going to be watching this game and they're going to be like, right, do we want the payoff of banning the Hibana? Because it didn't really do much as far as... Team 1 haven't even gone to a basement defense yet, so I don't think they've banned it worrying about that. But the payoff for INTZ has been really painful. And Team 1 for that matter.
Certainly begs a bit of a question. VNX is going to be given an opportunity here at taking Levy down, but they're just not coming together as they would like. Zach starting to make his rotation down as well. Top floor control being gained, it should be fairly easy to start manipulating the players that are in on the site, but again, the time really does start to become quite a big factor here. 2 kills down on either side. Zach looking to move his way through now and get into archives. Going to just use the lifeline to stun out onto the other side and see if there's anybody that's going to be triggering that straight away. oNe maybe going to start to try and make an entrance in through double doorway as well. A couple of stuns is all that it's going to take really to make that happen, as you're going to be full white flashed if you do catch one. Neskin a long C4, but unfortunately for him, it isn't going to land. Everybody on the side of Team 1 knows where this push is coming from though, and Neskin's just going to line them up and knock them down. Zach, 0 seconds left. Not going to have enough time to do anything there in that one. Team 1 going to take the win here on Bank.
Yeah, that was just a really, really dominating showing from Team 1, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think that while we saw some great things from INTZ yesterday, this is going to be a really important piece of almost literature to go back and review and just say, right, here are where our fundamentals are, here are where their fundamentals are, where is the gap in this, where is the disparity? Because there were quite a lot that were relatively conspicuous to us. And look, when you bring a new map into the map pool, it always happens. Yet Team 1 were exceptionally messy when Chalet first came into the map pool, you know? And even though they, as we spoke before, started to set the meta, the way of playing Chalet, they still had their messy plays on it, and it took a while to perfect that. And that same thing could be true here for INTZ, but this simply just, it wasn't really their game.
I think early adopters of a new map into the pool are always fairly successful on it. And you know, you don't need to put a great deal of time and effort into figuring out how you want to play a couple of things and how you want to bring a couple of pocket strats out to really catch teams that are a little bit less coordinated off guard. And I think that's exactly what Team One have been able to do, at least in this game against INTZ. So we're going to bring Chunks back in. I believe we've got an interview lined up as well, so we'll be able to dig a little bit deeper into the thoughts of Team One.
Absolutely, we do. But before we do, I want to go all the way back to round number 2, because we got to think about that Alamar clutch for a second. That has just stolen the show for that game for me. I'm pretty sure we even have a funny highlight lined up so we can go back and watch that one. Do we, Producer Simon? I'm pretty sure we have it ready. Let's
Simon's
go
being
all the
rude.
way back to round number 2. Ollie, how about you walk us through what exactly happened here?
I mean, it was a mess, wasn't it? You know, let's be honest. It's a round that shouldn't have gone. Look, time, 4 seconds. Diffuser picked up, 2 seconds, it starts going down. Fair enough. ADS is starting to get the plant down, and Alamar's on the cover. Now, he hasn't got as much ammunition as he'd like. He switches over with 1 bullet left in his FMG. He could have reloaded it. The amount of time that elapses now is insane. I'm not too sure what INTZ were doing at this moment in time, because it takes them a while to even become in shot. We can just start to see the red X-rays now coming in, and you're like, Alamar, is he really going to win this with the Deagle? 2 shots. It's all it takes. VNX was 1 health. Such a great clutch. We've seen him clutch before with the Deagle, but it just shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't. I really wish that we had all of the player cams there. Maybe we can get the reaction from Lagonas, though, because he is lined up for an interview. Lagonas, how are you feeling after that one?
Hey guys, I'm feeling great. It's always a good win, and today was a solid map for us, so I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not sure whether you were able to see that highlight then from round number 2. Can you talk us through from the team's point of view what just happened, or was it just silence and let Alamar do his thing?
Yeah, so before the clutch, it was a mess, as you guys said, because like Neskin died when he dropped the hatch, and he was the guy that is gonna open a rotate to that small bomb site, you know. So because he was dead, like we needed to jump the wing, though it was a super mess, and they got the 2v2. KRS could plant, and in the clutch, like when Alemão was in the 1v2, we just like keep the silence and listen the game. So yeah, it was good to keep in silence so we can hear the both guys come in the hallway.
Lagonis, I'm really interested in your thoughts on the Hibana ban, because obviously one of the big things right now is that having a Hibana in the game makes it really hard to defend onto the basement because of the changes in her pellets and the ability to open up the hatches. However, because it meant that both your team and INTZ decided to play Ace instead, if Ace got killed, which happened to you guys in round number 4, it was basically your first loss, or your first death that you had in that round. And it also happened in the next half as well to INTZ. If Ace got down, that was basically it, kind of round over, because that's your only option for long-range hard breach. So do you think that Hibana ban is going to become more popular on this map?
Yeah, in my opinion, Hibana it's gonna be a really popular ban in Bank and in other maps, because in my opinion she's the best operator for guys who play support. So that's my role, right? And in the basement side, as you said, if we keep pushing the server side, the TV bomb side, so it would be better go for garage or in the back, you know. So we got the wrong option in that time because Ace was dead, so the thing that I could do was the same as the first round or the second round. In the clutch, Alemão did that bomb site. So the right option was going in the other way, but we don't thought that in that moment. So yeah, that's it.
Oh, bless you, Gio. Lagonis, I just wanted to ask you a really quick question about Finca. And it's as much about your team as it is about all the teams in LATAM at the moment. Why is everybody playing Finca? Finca has just all of a sudden appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah, so Finca is a really good operator because she has 2 grenades, right? And the Gunner 6, I think is the name, right? So that's really good. Like you can break 3 things, destroy 3 shields or destroy 2 banshees. So that's really, really good. You need to have or her or Yana on the composition, right? So today was, I think, the first time that we bring Finca. Like KDS said today in the morning, I'm gonna play Finca today. You know, okay, let's see. And the boost, right? The boost of life, the boost of going a little, aiming a little bit faster. It's really good. So if you use the gadget, the Finca gadget, the right time, you can got a lot of kills, you know. So it's a really good operator.
I mean, look, that was a really impressive game from you guys. Lagonas, thank you for your insight. It was amazing to break apart that game and a pleasure to watch. I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, I hope so. So thanks, guys. Thanks for the interview. He's always good at chatting with you guys. And see you soon.
Well, that is it for match number 1. Match number 2 will be underway shortly, but before it is, we're going to take a very short break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a few minutes.